David Mencer, thanks very much for coming on the programme. So we just heard your Prime Minister speak to the General Assembly. Lots of people walking out. I mean, is this unprecedented isolation for Israel?
Not at all. I think you saw today the Prime Minister representing his people with pride in a way which almost no other person in Israel can do, eloquently, with distinction, and I think with detail, to push back on the lies that have been told about Israel for almost 2 years now. And on the issue of people leaving, well, look, who walked out? It was Iran, that locks up their own opposition. They don't like to hear from a democracy. It was Turkey, which also lock up their own opposition and then give a mouthpiece to Hamas. So those guys walked out, it's true, but still we believe that our message was heard today, a powerful message that Israel wants this war to be over when our hostages are home and when Hamas lay down their arms.
But you are getting more and more isolated, not just here, but across the board. So you've got, international sporting events cancelling Israel, the Eurovision Song Contest possibly cancelling Israel. You've got your best friends in Europe recognizing the state of Palestine. And perhaps most importantly, your best friend in the world, Donald Trump, saying about any plans to annex the West Bank, it's not going to happen. And I wonder whether you regret especially the attack on Qatar the other day to take out the Hamas office there, because the Americans were very upset by that.
Israel has never had a friend like Donald Trump in the White House. The Prime Minister on Monday is going for an unprecedented fourth visit. And that's just since...
Perhaps to get a dressing down, though,
Not
right?
at all. That is just since Donald Trump returned to the White House. So a fourth visit, that is unprecedented. No other country has had that sort of reception by this White House. And President Trump, look, he gets Israel. He understands the precarious nature in which our country finds itself. He joined Israel in defeating the Iranian nuclear menace. And we've had no better friend than the US president.
But he's also said very clearly you cannot annex the West Bank, and we know that plan was being discussed in the Israeli cabinet. So he's set down a red line. Are you prepared to cross that red line?
Look, our Prime Minister has said very, very clearly that this is a subject will be discussed in Israel after our return from the US. So I haven't got anything further to say on that point, but I will tell you that these areas we're talking about, their names are Judea. Judea and Samaria.
Not to
Judea,
the Palestinians who live there.
Judea.
They call it something else.
Yes, but of course our history goes back 3,000 years, which is before the Palestinian.
That's their home.
They
live there. These are their communities.
I'm not denying that. Of course they live there. No one is denying that. But I'm also saying to you that Jews come from Judea.
Yeah.
These are ancient Jewish homelands. This is where Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, the forefathers of our nation, are buried. They're very important to this country.
Can we talk less about the Old Testament and more about the reality today?
I'm happy to, Matt.
When Israeli settlers go in and attack Palestinian communities in order to intimidate people to get out or just kill a few of them, do you approve of that?
Look, lawlessness is never to be approved by a democratic country. Of course it's not. And where there is wrongdoing,
you're permitting it in the West
where
Bank.
there is wrongdoing, of course our police and our security forces stand up to it. But I will say to you this very, very clearly. It's important to understand that these incidents pale into insignificance in terms of the number and also the scale when it comes to the terrorism which Israeli people living in those areas face day in, day out. They pale into insignificance.
And
they are a minority, which unfortunately international media loves to speak up.
And that number pales into insignificance compared to the 65,000 dead in Gaza, many of them women and children, the wholesale destruction of the Gaza Strip, which has now been rendered into an unviable economic or social unit. I mean, what is the policy there? Is it ethnic cleansing? Is it genocide? What is it?
So Matt, I'm a little bit surprised at you, an experienced journalist, a grandee of British journalism, quoting to me the figures of a terrorist organisation. You wouldn't take Al-Qaeda's name for it.
This is the Palestinian Authority.
Yes,
you wouldn't take these numbers. These numbers have not been disputed by the international community.
No, well,
and all you have to see is the
these
levels of
figures
destruction.
are false. They are Hamas figures.
Well, why don't you let us, David Mencer, why don't you let us go in and report
hundreds
ourselves?
Of journalists
you won't
have
let
been
us in.
Hundreds of international journalists have been into Israel.
With
hundreds.
the IDF on very
yes,
controlled
and that's right. Because we don't want you to get killed.
Oh, well,
yes, Matt.
by you.
We don't
by
want
the
you to get
Israeli
killed.
army.
No, that's
right.
insulting.
Right.
Okay,
But
because
also,
our
you
country,
killed 240
our country
Palestinian
is the
journalists.
only country in hundreds of miles in any direction where journalists are respected and their work is
David,
protected.
let's be clear.
Many
are not
of these
letting us
journalists,
into the Gaza Strip.
hundreds
so that
of
we
journalists
don't
have gone in.
Get
Hundreds of journalists
on
have gone
very
in.
controlled
Hundreds
embeds
upon
with the-
hundreds upon hundreds.
very
You can't deny the
controlled-
facts. Hundreds and hundreds of journalists
Yes,
have gone in.
but not to do journalism. They've been there. They've been gone in for a couple
Not
of
at
hours
all.
with the
Not
idea.
at all. It's a war zone.
I
Okay,
know
we
these
have a
embeds.
responsibility.
You're not allowed to go in and do
And
your
I'll tell
own
you one
reporting.
thing, Matt.
Why won't you let us tell the
One
story?
question you haven't asked me about is the hostages. We care about
was
getting.
about to get to that.
We were about getting our hostages out rather than
Right,
getting
let me
your
ask-
journalists
can I
in.
ask you a
That is our
Can I
objective.
ask you a hostage
When the
question?
Prime Minister spoke today, he was more interested in the United Nations, in that building just over there. He was more interested in speaking to our 20 hostages, and that is why he lined the Israeli side of the Gazan border with Israel with huge loudspeakers, because we want to tell our hostages, 20 of them still alive, 48 in total, that we have not forgotten about them, even though the world has not put anywhere near, including Channel 4 News, has put anywhere near enough pressure on Hamas. You put all the pressure on Israel, we haven't forgotten about them. And this war will be over when all of our hostages are home, not piecemeal, not twos and threes and ones and body here and a body there.
Trump keeps saying.
All of them home at once, with Hamas laying down their arms. In that instant, the war will be over.
How many hostages, Israeli hostages, have been killed inadvertently by Israeli bombardments?
So that's a.
Do you have a number there?
That's a tragic. That's when that has happened. In friendly fire incidents, that has been a tragic occurrence.
How often?
But please don't blame the victim, the hostages themselves. It's not Israel that took them hostage. Hamas took them hostage. Hamas keep them hostage. Matt, this is very important because you're putting pressure. You're putting pressure on Israel. Hamas took them hostage. Hamas keep them hostage. Hamas could let them go. They choose not to let them go. If the pressure which you guys put on Israel was put on Hamas, they would have been released.
You could also
many months ago.
Choose not to exert collective punishment on the Gaza Strip by bombing, apartment blocks.
So that's incorrect.
Parts of cities.
That's incorrect.
But that's what you've
the
been
opposite.
doing.
The opposite is true.
It's not true.
All of the not Channel 4 experts. All of the independent experts, the world-renowned experts, like John Spencer from West Point in the US, here in the US, they all say the same thing. No other country has done more to avoid civilian casualties than this country. This was a war which Hamas designed. They wanted to sacrifice their own people. That's why they hide under mosques. That's why they hide within schools. That's why they're willing to sacrifice their own people. The best thing for Gaza, the best thing for Gazans, is to get Hamas out of the way, and we can start to rebuild a better future.
Tony Blair has been mentioned in dispatches as a possible leader of some kind of interim body. Is that a runner? Is that going to happen? Do you know about this?
Well, look, of course, we've seen the reports as everyone else has. I can share with you that the Prime Minister has met with Tony Blair. And I haven't got anything more to share with you, but I can tell you that Tony Blair does have an understanding of the region, perhaps like very few others in the international community have. So let's wait and see what happens to this development.
Just one final one briefly. I mean, this body here, the United Nations, and hundreds of legal experts have come to the conclusion that what you're doing in the Gaza Strip is an act of genocide. This is the country that was itself, people were subject to the worst genocide, or one of the worst acts of genocide ever committed in the history of humankind. Now that you're being accused of the same thing in the Gaza Strip, what is your reaction to that? Does it make you feel shame? Does it make you reflect on what's been going on? Or do you just think, well, the international community is lying?
Matt, I'll tell you how I feel as a representative and a spokesman of Israel's government. I feel pride.
Pride?
I feel honor.
Pride in genocide?
I feel honor that I get to represent the homeland, the only homeland of the Jewish people on this earth. There are more than 50 Islamic states. There are countless Christian states. There is only one place in the world where a Jew can go, and wherever they're facing persecution, they can come home to Israel.
And aren't
you
endangering...
on the charge of genocide, it is a false claim. It is completely unfounded. You throw at me 100 experts, I can throw at you another 300 experts that say precisely the opposite. And we are very clear what's happening here. Palestinians saw how Israel was created. They saw it was created in the aftermath of the Holocaust. They're trying to recreate that narrative. It is a false narrative. Of course, no one wants to see Palestinians die, but all of our hostages home and Hamas dropping their weapons, that means this conflict is over in an instant.
But the hostages are dying, you could argue, because the war is continuing. I mean, there was a release of hostages when you had a deal.
This is such an outrageous line of questioning.
It's not really outrageous.
Because Hamas took them hostage.
Hamas
keep them hostage. Hamas could let them go. Hamas chooses not to let them go. Don't blame the victim. The victim, these hostages. Don't blame them for the crime of the terrorists.
Have you listened to the hostage families?
Of course we listen to the hostage families.
With your
they were in the hall today. Those hostage families were in the hall today, and they applauded the Prime Minister.
Well, not
because,
all of them,
because
not the
they
ones on
know
the streets in Tel Aviv.
Because they know that the Prime Minister and this government and all of our people, for the hostages, this is an open sore in Israeli society, and all of us know their names, we know their ages, we know their parents, we know their brothers and sisters, and we are waiting for them to come home. But Hamas are holding them, not Israel. Hamas are holding them. Some hostage families. Some hostage families.
Furious with you because they think you're sacrificing their children, their loved ones,
God forbid,
for the sake of a perpetual war.
God forbid. It's not a perpetual war. That's also, it's precisely the opposite. The Prime Minister and the government and our people, you know, I have my children, my own children who are serving in the IDF. All of us want this war to be over, but we cannot, you know, this is not France. We're not living in a peaceful neighborhood. These are places meters away from our homes. When we put our children to bed at night on those kibbutzim, on that border, we want to be completely sure that they don't not wake up the next morning with Hamas guys with green armband, with green headbands, with AK-47s, and shooting them as they did just 2 years ago.
Kids are going to bed hoping they're not going to be pulverized by the IDF in the middle of the night.
A Gazan future without Hamas is the future which all right-minded people, and I hope you too, Matt, want to see.
David Mencer, thank you very much indeed.
Good to be with you, thank you.